Imagine you're walking down the street in Cincinnati, Ohio. Let's just say, for example, you're going to the store. Then the police come right by you. One of the officers stops the car, gets out the car, and pulls the gun on you. The officer says, "Freeze! You're under arrest." And you're like, "Well, what for?" "Well, 10 minutes ago, you burned down the house in St. Louis, Missouri. So we gotta take you to jail." And you're like, "Are you serious? 10 minutes ago? You think I could have got to St. Louis, Missouri from Cincinnati in 10 minutes? Like, listen, man, get in the car and shut up. You're going to prison." You get in the car, obviously, that person repeats the same story to, let's say, for example, their superior, and they're like, "Listen, you're crazy, let the guy go." They let you go, of course, because it doesn't make any sense. But this is exactly what happens to black men every day. Black men get blamed for stupid stories like that that have nothing to do with them. Rewind. Joe Biden is the current president of the United States. He beat the former president, Donald Trump, in 2020. They are now running again. And as you know, they had a world famous debate that didn't go so well for Mr. Joe Biden. Donald Trump really touched on the fact that Joe Biden has not been so nice to the black community. This clip here went viral all across the nation.
Effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
Now, excerpt of that clip, which was black jobs, did go viral in itself, but the message is clear. Joe Biden has been no friend to African Americans, especially black men, which is why he looked pretty insulted when Donald Trump was saying that. He looked also like he was ashamed of himself, and he should have. But Joe Biden didn't do so well in the debate, and it caused a lot of people in the Democratic Party to say things like this.
That said, I too was on the phone throughout much of the debate with Obama world people, with Democrats, with people who are political operatives, with campaign operatives. My phone really never stopped buzzing throughout. And the universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic. The people who were texting with me were very concerned about President Biden seeming extremely feeble, seeming extremely weak. And, you know, I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. President Biden had one job tonight, and it was one primary job. And yes, it was to litigate Donald Trump's, you know, criminality and all of those things. But he had to settle his own party. Mm-hmm. He needed to settle Democrats. Democrats, you know, they always talk about Democrats are bedwetters and Democrats are always panicking. Yes, Democrats are always panicking. They're always scared, right? They're always thinking they're going to lose. Like, Democrats are very pessimistic. This is just neurotic. Who they are. They're neurotic. But Joe Biden's job was to reassure them tonight. His job was to calm his party, to make them feel that, yes, I can do this. I have 4 more years in me. I have the ability and the stamina and the strength to do 4 more years. He did not do that. He did the opposite of that. he made them more panicked. The people who were texting me were even more panicked. They actually expected it to be better than it was. And now they're in I won't say a full-fledged panic, but it's getting there.
And even folks like this.
I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention, and there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain of what we saw tonight.
Even Barack Obama couldn't stand that Joe Biden did so terrible. He said this: bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. But this election is still a choice between someone who has fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself. Between someone who tells the truth, who knows right from wrong, and will give it to the American people straight, and someone who lies through his teeth for his own benefit. Last night didn't change that, and it's why so much is at stake in November. JoeBiden.com. As you know, Joe Biden is the former vice president to retired former President Barack Obama. But I saw an article that really pissed me off. And that article says, right-wingers are spreading misinformation to black voters through podcasts and influencers. It was written by a guy by the name of Jahan Jones. I'll read you this particular paragraph and then we will start. A new report released Tuesday highlights how the far right is spreading misinformation to black voters through popular influencers, social media, and podcasts. Over the past few years on the ReidOut Blog, I've written extensively about how popular, ostensibly black news outlets, influencers, and hip-hop podcasters have been used to spread the far-right propaganda and misinformation or undermine civic engagement. This report is easily the most thorough examination I've seen into how false and manipulative claims make their way from bad actors to black folks. I clicked on it so fast I almost hammered a hole in my desk. Then he goes on and he talks about three guys in particular: Joe Budden Podcast, Stephen A. Smith, and 19 Keys. All of these guys, which I never knew were Trump supporters, I never thought were Trump supporters. 19 Keys, I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. But this next paragraph is going to be important for brothers. The report notes that some of these outlets' large audiences could make them very useful in dispelling false and misleading claims. But it also highlights how some of these entities have already platformed extremist right-wingers. It also talks about some other concepts we've discussed on the blog, including efforts to promote anti-immigrant sentiment within the black community, a Trumpian strategy we're seeing unfold today, and an effort to promote toxic hyper-masculinity among black men. There we go. Let's blame everything on black men. And this is where they get it wrong. You see, so many people want to mistreat African American men and talk down to them like they are little children. We saw that with Stacey Abrams a few years ago when she was running from governor to Georgia. Just vote for Stacey Abrams and just vote like black women vote. That's what they told black men. And black men are never considered about how they feel, what their voting ideas are, what do they want in the black community or as citizens in this country. And when you get anybody who wants to think logically, it's always an insult. Hypermasculinity in the black community has no bearing on how black people feel about Joe Biden. Do you guys know what Joe Biden has done as a president? He'll arguably go down as one of the worst presidents in the black community's perspective ever. First of all, Joe Biden will be responsible for the largest migrant crisis, if not number one, in American history. We have young women in the black community or all around America who have been assaulted by foreign men. We have people in Black Chicago who are suffering, South Chicago, West Chicago neighborhoods that have been infiltrated with illegal migrants taking over resources and things like that. We have seen Joe Biden say nothing about reparations, as well as Kamala Harris getting nothing in that particular discussion. Although telling people if you vote for Trump, you're not black. Then when it comes to everything that the African American community would want, there is nothing that they're willing to offer you. They only want to offer you something with the inclusion of other minorities, which is unacceptable. And so when Joe Biden and the Democrats don't want to be accountable for these things, they blame hypermasculinity. They blame black men. Let's blame the manosphere. Let's blame the red pill or whoever else, which of course those communities do exist, but it has nothing to do with why black men feel the way they do. And unfortunately, Joe Biden lost the debate because Joe Biden is not a good debater. He never has been, and he's not a good president, and he is old, and he's a liar. That's why. So now you see all these Democrats here, they're ruffling, they're shuffling, they're doing anything they can, trying to save face. Brother Tariq Nasheed talked about the same thing. Everybody sees this. And even Joy Hall says, well, you know what? Democrats are always panicking because Democrats are con artists. That's why they're doing it. And to blame black men has to be the most sickening thing that I've ever seen, because what it shows me is that you don't want to take any accountability for how your party has worked out or has performed in the last 4 years. The Democratic Party performed at an all-time low. And yes, if you want to get mad at Donald Trump, that's fine. But a person with 34 felonies is going to be the next president of the United States because your party couldn't get it done. And more black men are leaving the Democratic Party because you can't get it done and you don't offer anything. Now you want to blame everybody else. This is pathetic. And you know what they do? They use these same African-American writers and bloggers to come after black men, which is sickening. And I wish they would stop doing it, but they probably won't. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, Shady Jackson. Back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. Appreciate you for all of you. Skirt the bell. We're out.